All my friends, Scioto County Daily News, welcome. Today's guest is Mel McLeod. She's a writer, she's an advocate, she's someone with a really powerful story that I think that you're going to be very interested to learn. We're going to talk about everything from growing up around recovery to her finding her voice through journalism. And a real important question is why Portsmouth became the place where she turned to get it all turned around. So let's get into it. Hi, Mel.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Very good. It is such a pleasure. I've had such a nice time getting to know you over these past few weeks. And so before we dive in, here's what we're going to touch on, just so the viewers know, and so we're kind of on the same track. We want to talk about your early life in a little town called Buffalo, and then how debate and journalism shaped you, and what HR and recovery taught you, and how all of that shows up in your writing and your advocacy work today. So we're going to keep it real. It's conversational. It's not like an interview per se. But then at the very end, let's see, that's the three shot. Where's oh hey. Oh, there's Mel. Hey, well, I'm trying to look at the camera because it's not on the monitor. Um, but we have some very big news that we're going to share at the end of the segment. Something very exciting. So please stick around for that. So the first question that I would have for you is, please tell me now. You grew up in Buffalo, right? So Buffalo, and listen up, Portsmouth, and you tourism people. If you ever want to model yourself after a city that has had the best marketing campaign in American history, it is the city of Buffalo. And I'm not talking about the Buffalo Bills or the weather. I'm talking about Buffalo, what?
New York.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
Wings.
Buffalo wings, buffalo wings, buffalo sauce,
Yes.
and every restaurant in America, be it a chicken shack or a pizza shop, every menu in America has something about buffalo on it. So buffalo has become a part of American lexicon, unlike any other city, the Big Rotten Apple or anything. Buffalo is more widely recognized, it's something that Portsmouth needs to consider. How can we compete with places that are so iconic, such as Buffalo, Las Vegas, which doesn't really count because it's kind of its own its own world, but more reasonably Cincinnati, Nashville, Austin, Texas. Um, those are cities that do a really good job at marketing themselves to get new investments and new people and new life. And so, as we're looking at adding members to the city council and on the county level, when we run the tourism department, we need to have those kind of things in mind, don't you think? With the whole Buffalo connection, yeah, yeah. All right. So, what was it like growing up in Buffalo, especially with recovery being a part of your actual home life? So, tell me about that.
Yeah. So my mom and dad met in Buffalo, New York. It was at a recovery dance, and um, my dad had passed when I was at a very young age. And my mom continued in her journey in sobriety, but she took me along with her as well. So I can remember going to meetings, getting snacks, being at pool halls, and just really growing up around people that were just like me. And that kind of planted the seeds, just for knowing, what recovery kind of looked like without knowing exactly where I was as a child, and just seeing my mom create these relationships that had really helped her. Buffalo has, it's good and bad, in my story, the ups and downs of what it's like to have a parent and living in recovery. So it did start there. We would go to Cincinnati, in the summertime. That was like my vacation, as a kid, ride the Greyhound bus.
Oh yeah.
And come to Cincinnati. So I did end up moving to Cincinnati way further along in life. But Buffalo is where it all started, where my parents met. I learned the Serenity Prayer before I even knew what it meant, as a kid. And my mom told a funny story about me at Top Supermarket in Buffalo, New York, yelling like my name was Melissa and I'm an alcoholic. And she couldn't get me to stop yelling. So I've had a lot of memories come back, and I'm able to really connect with my mother's story and what it was like, having found my own recovery in a different town much further away.
Let me follow up with one. When you mentioned that you grew up in a house of recovery, um, at the time, were you aware? 8-year-old Mel, a little running around. Did you know you were in a house of recovery, or did you think that was normal, or do you remember pre-recovery days? Tell me about that.
I can remember, when it felt more like a house of recovery, and then when it didn't. There's very distinct, times and feelings. Riding the bus, with my mom, going to meetings. She's got her sponsor picking her up. I remember a lot of that. I remember, running around and just feeling safe and happy. And, I made people smile, but they made me smile. I didn't really listen in on anyone's stories because I was just, there to play. But I was always, welcomed with open arms, as a child that had grew up in that kind of environment. I remember my mom staying very, very busy, and I think that was very key in her sobriety. And then I can also remember when there were times that weren't so bright. Stuff that I've experienced as an adult, and now I understand a little bit more, looking at my mother's situation, why things the way they were. But I had no idea about where I was at. I knew the things, and I knew that we were going to meetings, but I just knew that we were going to have fun, and I was going to get attention, maybe some candy, maybe some soda. And then just be welcomed. My mom branched into, so we're from Native American descent, and that there were meetings for Native Americans as well. There were meetings.
Oh, really?
Yes. And there were meetings for crafts, with Native American crafts. So she kind of had her own network and made me a part of that too, as a child. So it was really interesting. I got to ask her later on in life, just this year actually, what did recovery in Buffalo, New York look like? And she said, oh, we went everywhere. She said she had a friend that became her sponsor, and they traveled to a lot of meetings. And I said, well, how'd you know about the meetings? Because now we just hop online. And she said, well, we had booklets, and they were always accurate, and they said the days that they weren't going to have meetings, and they were pretty up to date. And then she said it was a very tight-knit community, and it kind of reminded me of Portsmouth for sure. Hearing her talk about what she found and what I found. This kind of became my Buffalo after hearing, what she had grew up with. She, a little bit more about her. She was 17 at her first meeting, and I said, "How did you end up there?" She said, "Well, I was a teenager, and I knew I shouldn't be drinking at that young of an age." So she kind of brought herself into meetings and immersed herself into being away from those people, places, and things that you're not supposed to. You're not good for you anymore, and created or found a community of sober women, Native American people, young people. And that's where she had met my father.
So you mean to tell me, this is a new revelation, you mean to tell me that your mom didn't have the rock bottom moment and the intervention and you got to do this or die? She felt it in herself, that still small voice. She felt it in herself that something's not clicking right, and took it on herself to go to the meetings?
So she was a teenager, and she had said she drank from about age 12 to 17. And there was an ultimatum. Her aunt said that she had lived with, who had custody of her, said that, you need to stop drinking or you're going to, you're not going to be able to stay here anymore. So she said she realized, I'm this young and I have an issue. And then I believe her aunt, my great aunt, she had got her connected with someone to sponsor her, and really just that. So there was an ultimatum, like most people get, or a little bit of a rock bottom, but it had happened at such a young age for her, which I thought was really cool. I didn't get to ask her about any of this until I really dove into recovery myself, because there wasn't, I don't think I'd have the understanding that I do now, or the acceptance, or, just having found recovery myself independent from her story makes me really interested in where she, how she found that community and, met my father. And then the one of her connections actually, when things weren't, things really got messed up when relapse happened, and my mom's a single parent and a single mother in Buffalo, New York in the 90s, and she went back to stopped going to meetings, stopped really incorporating any recovery in her life, what really happened. So with I forgot what I was just saying.
That she was going through some issues, and being a young woman in Buffalo, and did you lose your train of thought?
Yeah, I did.
That didn't help at all?
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. It's just a conversation that happens to all of us.
I was going somewhere with that, I swear.
Well, before we went on camera, remember I was on a roll about talking about something. And
and you lost it.
I have no idea what I'm saying. So let's move into, you're a little older now, because we started out when you were 8, 9. Now let's talk about, you're in high school, and you discover things like debate and journalism, and in that you kind of found two things. You found kind of the beginnings of your voice, and the beginnings of what's super important is your confidence.
Yes.
So tell me how that kind of happened, and what was your first experiences like?
Oh, I know how this all connects, and actually segues into what we were talking about. So, my mom had, probably her bottom was realizing that she could no longer care for me and my little brother any longer. And then she had went to, I'd known Kitty, who ended up being my brother and I's foster parent, along with her husband, went to her, and she had moved to Cincinnati, and then she gave custody over to her. That's how I got from Buffalo to Cincinnati. But it was because of a recovery program that they even knew each other, and that we had what felt like to me my Nana, my family member, through that program. So that brought me out of the projects of Buffalo, New York, into in the Cincinnati, Northern Kentucky area, and it wouldn't have been any other. They met through meetings, and knew one another because of that. So when my mom was at her very bottom, is when someone in the program was able to step in and help and got us here. So, but yes, so I was always in middle school. I was always class clown. I used humor, and it was maybe a little healing. Sometimes it gets a little dark, but when I was younger, it was more for healing. And I always thought to myself, if people are laughing, then they're not sad. They can't be sad. They're
Right.
smiling. They're not. They don't hurt for just a moment if they're smiling or laughing. So, I brought that same spirit into high school, and we had I'd been a part of a oh, you're fine. I've been a part of a school that was very focused on their speech and drama team, which also included debate. There were a lot of for speech and drama specifically. There were a lot of events that you had to qualify for over the year, but I wanted to just go when I could because I was playing sports at the same time. I stayed very busy in my life to kind of hide the trauma and the hurt. So I was always in sports no matter what season, but I did want to do speech and drama, and that included debate and broadcasting. I entered a debate. I had to enter a competition for debate at the state level because that was the only way to go and compete and be gone from school for a week.
Oh,
So
that's attractive.
I thought, okay, I've got to compete in debate. Let's see how this goes. And that really taught me that there are two sides of a story and to be quick. I ended up, coming out of nowhere. I got third place in state, second runner up because the person who won chose a different event to compete in. So I was the second best and next up to go to nationals, and I had just went to events when I could. I wasn't super involved with that throughout the year. Only on the weekends I didn't have sports. I would do speech and drama, but another part of that, the creative side, not just debate and one side presenting oppositional. That kind of stuff was broadcasting, and I had to stick out too because I wasn't competing all year. I didn't have that practice. And I remember I was like, I've got to use humor, because you kind of had an intro pretending to be your own radio station. And I remember saying, my name's Mel McLeod, and I'm reporting live from the women's bathroom where no men are allowed. And I was just trying to kind of be funny and stick out when I was younger. And I had, our speech and drama team at my high school was really good. So I had a lot of very focused and talented students and friends that, I saw them. I kind of was playing copycat for a while, but I knew I had to put a spin on it. And then with debate, the last thing I'll say about that is I knew I had to go in with a semi-neutral, because you had to put something in the docket, and I had to win because everyone votes down everyone's, because it's competition.
Right.
But I went in and mine was about recycling, so who's going to say no to that? So I remember being very strategic.
Lazy people.
Exactly. So my bill was the only one that had passed because I kind of had it a little bit neutral. But then I always was the last person to ask the opponent questions. So that sports, competition, that kind of mentality went into debate. All right, I got to be ready. And then broadcasting, I was able to kind of have that humor and catch people's attention. That was fun, and it just matched my personality a little bit. when it comes to like that background, and I knew I had to stand out a little bit because I hadn't been.
Why did you feel like you had to stand out?
Because I wasn't, I was busy, and I saw. I think our high school had competed in speech and drama tournaments, and a lot of my friends and fellow students were, ranking at the state level. So I knew that I had to be more like, watch what they're doing, do what they're doing. But I've got to stick out because I'm not always here every weekend. They practice every week. They compete every week. They get feedback. You get notes. I don't really have that, so I wanted to keep qualifying for the next round and the next round, but I had to almost work harder to stay, in those state level competitions. It was fun, and I think our coach made sure that, fun. It started with fun, but we were also, when it came down to it, very competitive. So
you brought out something you told on yourself just now about a characteristic that you possess without saying that you possess it. But I heard it, so they heard it. What you're describing is that there are, even in high school, in sports and academia and debate, and I want to talk about debate again, drama, love drama, music, there are some people who are naturally talented that can ace every test and not ever crack a book, right? And then there's other people that know that they want the opportunities afforded to those good grades, but they say, I don't know why it's so freaking easy for them, but I got to make the conscious choice that I'm going to rank with them because they don't even realize what they got. You know what I mean? It's so easy, they don't appreciate it. I appreciate it, and I'm determined to do that. So, so many of your decisions are based on that subconscious thought of, I got this. I got the moxie. You know what I mean? And I can play ball at that level, and so I'm gonna be focused and take a calculated move that the people that got there kind of on whatever natural ability, or not natural ability, but just ease on down the road. Some people get that, that they might be there at that top tier. They don't appreciate it. They don't understand what it really takes to get there. It just came so easily that they probably don't have a career in it because it is nothing. But when you start and you say, this is something I want to attain, then when you attain it, what a sense of accomplishment, right? And then you feel like now you found your calling. You spent so much time working towards it, you found your calling, which is my segue into, I got to ask my debate question first. Did your debate club talk really, really fast or regular style?
What do you mean?
Some debates, due to time, you have only 60 seconds.
Yes.
So much time to make your point.
Yes.
And so the pace is really, really
quick,
fast. And it's not like real court. Yeah. That's interesting, and I didn't know that. So that means that you're forced to change your, think on your feet naturally, but change up from what's on your notes, what that you thought was going to be next, and jump ahead for things because the other person took you there, but you're ready for them.
Absolutely.
So you had that timed, get to your point, make the point, sell it, prove it, all that kind of stuff.
I think the part of debate that was the hardest was the questions you were going to get thrown at you. That's when you're getting grilled during that time. It's free for all. But I knew I also needed to have good questions. I got familiar with other people's. You could look at the docket before the next day of competing, so I knew what questions I was going to ask, and I made sure I raised my hand first and got those.
That's
but
right.
Yeah, it was very competitive, and I think for me, you know how this all, you know, comes back into it is I knew that I was always going to be there were a lot of things working against me. Single mother, low income, the statistics, you know, being in foster care. I knew that there were a lot of statistics working against me growing up, and that's kind of where that drive came in when it came to really getting into college and finishing and proving that I can do it, but it sometimes is rooted in a little bit of survival instincts as well.
So when you took the journalism in
Mm-hmm.
college, how has that affected you, kind of like the world beyond college?
Mm-hmm. So I remember how that kind of started was, I don't know if I saw something hanging up, but there was an opening for different positions at the paper. I went to university in Kentucky first, and then I went over to Xavier, and that's, you know, where I went back to Cincinnati. But I saw an opening for senior sports editor, and I said, well, I play sports, and I know how to write, and I have, I'm going to see what happens. So I remember kind of using my background with, you know, doing broadcasting scripts and debate, and somehow landed a spot as the senior sports editor at my school paper, and that was pretty cool. It really felt more writing at that level. Looking back, it was cool, but it was almost like a hobby or a duty, or like, I have to do this no matter what. Deadlines were deadlines. I never missed one of them when it came
That's
to
right.
when it came to the
Because
to
you
writing.
had the work ethic you learned in high school.
Mhm.
Whenever we talked about that, it all
Mhm.
comes together. Ah,
Mhm.
that's so much fun. So you did sports,
Mhm.
and did they have you do other things other than sports when you got to Xavier?
No, so I had wrote I had went to another university for one semester. I knew I had to get on their writing team. Um, I think that I cared about that more than, you know, my other classes. I cared about them equally, but um, there was an opening for an opinion editor, so I went and got so I got, you know, to write a little bit in the opinion section. It's one column, and I knew I had to kind of entertain a little bit, because it's what you go over in the school paper. Some people read it, some people don't. But I
The school
used
paper's actually still pretty hot.
yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
um, but I wanted to definitely stick out in that opinion section. My one column. Um, but I came to my journalism led into me writing my first piece really as an advocate, and it had been talking about a student that couldn't hear her fire alarm, and she was unable to hear. She had a disability, and I knew that I already wrote for the paper. I had a voice. I knew how to interview people because of, having done the sports interviews. But I remember walking into the local fire department to ask them, what accommodations can you make? Going to the Department of Disabilities, why hasn't this been done? What's going on with this? And then going to the person, at this college that I knew he was in charge of the monetary side of those accommodations, and getting his opinion on everything. So 19-year-old me just really had that confidence and might to walk into a room
And own it.
and investigate and find out, why is this happening. And it wasn't, that's where I found the stories weren't about me. I got to tell them for other people to help them. So that's kind of where that came from. Maybe a little opinion section. I wanted a little, oh, that was funny, or that was nice. I liked your little, your your note in there. But with journalism and then just that piece, I think it's still online out there somewhere, but it really showed me how words have power, and they don't, you can come up with articles, do the investigating, do the interviewing, but it's not really about you. It's about the person and situation, policy, procedure, whatever needs to be changed or talked about, or just shine a light on so other people can kind of see this
Right.
too. At a very young age, almost 15 years ago, I found that voice, and I thought it laid, I think it's laid dormant for sure until I get now further along in life, Portsmouth, having finished school, haven't written for a paper in years. I think that it's a good point to get to where I want to not only be an advocate for other people, but this time it's kind of personal. So
It's kind of personal. Okay, out of that. I want to circle back. There's one thing that you said that I really like, or the transition caught my attention. Is you go from sports editor, which is fun, it's exciting, it's off the cuff, there's some humor. So you go from sports that, very popular, no controversy, other than that ref's terrible, to advocacy. What was that process? When did that switch flip? Because you haven't turned back since. You've been that laser focused. Something switched, and you turned on the turbocharger. So, what can I ask? What that wasn't on our pre-approved things to talk about. But
yeah.
How did that happen?
I think that I kind of refined my processes and who I was as a writer over time. So, sports editor, that was fun, and then opinion, that also can be fun as well. But honestly, the position as a writer for any paper was my end to tell someone else's story. I wasn't just coming to a newspaper room at a university and saying, "Hey, I want to write for you." I said, "Hey, I already write for you. I write in the opinion section. I've got something that I want to write about for like a main feature, like a feature article."
Right.
They didn't tell me that it was going to be on the front page of the newspaper.
Nobody knows until
Yeah.
it's time to lay it out,
Yeah.
and the editor, hey, wait, this is front page, top fold. Nobody knows to the last minute. So that's fantastic. You got a front page article.
I think that this was back in the early 2000s, so we really did the school paper. You pick it up, it's everywhere, it's free. People did read it, and I believe someone knew that I wrote for the paper, but then had connected me to someone who needed help, which was the student who couldn't hear her alarm, needed accommodations. When she had went through, I hadn't thought about this until now, but the loops and everything that kind of I went through with some of my story in Portsmouth, in treatment centers and whatnot. But I knew that I had an in with the paper. I knew that someone had a story that needed to be told, or maybe the story didn't need to be finished, but it needed to be a light to be shown on it because she needed help. I knew that she had ran through like some fire alarm drills, and that really spooked her because I remember those drills too, but she had kind of lived through, oh no, I really wouldn't be able to hear this.
Right.
So I made someone that didn't feel like she was being heard, feel heard. And that was really meaningful for me. I did something that wasn't very, looking back, it kind of laugh, but I let her read the article before it was published. But she was fine with it. But looking back, it's kind of funny that I was so making sure she was so comfortable that I had already revealed my work to someone, or my piece to her.
Yeah, that's a no-no.
Yeah,
that's asking for like 5 rewrites.
Yep, but no, she let me do that. I never did that again. Um, I think I told the editor of the newspaper that I let her read it, and he was like, okay. But looking back, it was more about, hey, kind of survival instinct of, hey, this is what I do. This, like, I always had to make sure I was surrounded by people, and oh, you write for the paper. Okay, let me tell you this. Like, I knew, I kind of worked that way, but I had been able to help someone else tell her story and hopefully make an impact. Or if there's no impact, then kind of exposing how certain certain things need to be like they need to be out there for people to do something about it, even if I don't get something done. Let her be heard, let the story be told, while I'm kind of in the background of it all.
So while we've been talking, we hit on Buffalo,
Mhm.
Cincinnati, um, uh, Native American heritage, and your very first foray into advocacy with a deaf person. So that makes me wonder: do you speak multiple languages?
Yes. So I studied Spanish. That was my major. Spanish language and literature. I graduated from Xavier with a degree in Spanish. Um, I had to write papers not only in English but also in another language. Those had to be sourced the right way. They weren't just paper creative writing type style. It was research papers. So that's kind of where I think that in my writing career, the schoolwork at a college level, you've got to be a good writer probably no matter what if you're at a university somewhere. But this, having been writing in English and then also Spanish, you've got to almost be really good at writing in your first language, and then we'll talk about the second one.
Right.
There's different syntax structure. There's different things you've got to focus on. So I had to make sure, like, you're learning another language and connecting it to your own. That has to be very clear for you to be able to pass classes that involve translating syntax, sentence structure, that kind of stuff. So that very much so kind of tweaked my writing into being more research or professional from that viewpoint. It got so busy at Xavier that I didn't really write for a paper. I had to write my own papers and keep up that way. I had to work to be able to go to college there. I couldn't afford to live in the dorms. So I was working full time and then student full time. So my creative side, or my voice, I feel like it did lay a little bit dormant until, having reached out and talked more about, this Portsmouth and what journalism looks like in this town.
So let me ask you, you had some time in HR, and I wanted to know how that kind of shaped the way that you see people and ethics and then systems, bureaucracies, inefficiencies, but anybody, but also how it made better work, and how the improvements was made. Can you tell us about that?
I think that my work in human resources or HR and recruiting, because I did a lot of hiring, I've hired a lot of people over time. I think HR, it shows how systems can either support or fail people. And it was my job to make sure that there was fairness, there was documentation in that fairness, and then accountability for sure. So if something was said a certain way, I really got to look at situations. I remember one of my managers saying, don't take the feelings and the emotions out of it, and then look at a situation, employee and manager, employee versus employee, the situations, and look at it as you would a car accident. Not, I thought that guy was angry, and then he, ended up hitting this car. No, you say the yellow car hit the blue car. So it's very like take the emotions out of it, but also be fair.
Right.
It really taught me to look at situations. This happened with an employee. They come to HR because as soon as drama, or not even drama, but real situations happen that probably weren't fair, you've got employees in your office right away.
Right.
So I had to really learn how to make sure that was documented, but then take the emotion out of the situation, look at the handbook, or look at policies and procedures, and say X person did this or didn't do this. If it had to do with attendance, all right, here's our attendance policy. Had to do with discrimination, here's who was discriminated against, here's how it was said, who was around witnesses and whatnot. It really got me to have discernment in situations to make sure that employees were being treated fairly by each other and us as well.
And on top of that, you've got state regulations, workman's comp regulations, workplace OSHA regulations, depending on the place. And I'll give you an example. I don't mind to share it. It's those who know me will know that this is true. I was working with Time Warner Cable. I was their district manager, and I trained the managers and all the salespeople in a district from Blue Ash, Cincinnati, all the way down to Lexington. And so I developed that whole marketing team. One of the things we had in the telemarketing section of that marketing team was, to kind of spur people on, is we had little promotions on first sale of the night. So anybody that got a first sale of the night got an extra $5 bill or whatever it was. This was years ago. This is last century, actually. But anyway, first sale of the night gets this nominal amount of money. And I didn't put the two and two together that the same woman won most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, frankly, because I had a lot of other things. Giving away that little $5 wasn't a priority. So it took me a while to figure it out. Then one day, it just dawns on me, how's she winning all the time? And this was a sweet old lady that you would, see going to church, Sunday go to meeting, and definitely down at the bingo hall, over to VFW. She's a sweet old lady. And I'm like, wait just a hairy second here. And I go through the books and I go through the payouts, and I'm like, it can't be true. And I look and I double look, and then I took my findings over to, I was in marketing, and so I go over to operations. Her office was literally across the hall from mine, and I said, look at this and see if you get the same conclusion I do. And her name was Lisa, and she says, yeah, looks like she's sandbagging. Because if you look, she makes her sales almost immediately, and then has a long dry spell, and then on nights that she gets sales towards the end of her shift, they're not reported until the next day, so she can get that $5. And I'm like, that's what I thought I saw. Now I got a second opinion. She says, same thing I'm thinking. So that shift, she comes in, and I fired her on the spot, loudly. And normally HR will teach you. You come and you have a quiet conversation. This was such an infraction that this was not a quiet conversation, because the other 30 people in that room also needed the idea. Don't get any bright ideas. This way to screw us has already been burned.
Yeah.
So I very publicly sent her out. Um, about a week later, I get a call from, speaking of HR, from the overall HR of the whole, because I was just the district. So I got a call from, his name was Fidel, and I love Fidel so much. I didn't know him then. This is our first meeting. He was very intimidating. He was, Louis. Thankfully, he became famous. Louis Guzman. It was on Adam's Family and some of a lot of comedies. Are you getting? Louis Guzman? No, no.
No.
Shit. I see. I thought I was hoping he was famous enough, but anyway. When you guys get done watching this video, look up Louis Guzman, and if Louis was about 4 inches taller, he would be Fidel. And Fidel got a hold of me, our first interaction, and his conversation to me was very simple. He said, "Are you going to go to court on this?" And I said, "Well, why would I go to court on this? She's a freaking thief." And he said, "Well, she filed unemployment. She files all this stuff. There's no record here of any prior disciplinary action. So I'm just saying, are you going to go to court? And when we lose, can we garnish your check?" And I said, "No, none of that's happening. She's a thief. We caught her. Lisa double checked my triple check numbers. No." Fidel said, I'll come see you." And he came and he saw me. He took me to dinner. Deshays Restaurant. Shout out to Deshays in Maysville. Fantastic food. Coconut shrimp. Get it. It's on the Bourbon Trail. Talking about tourism. It is a part of the Bourbon Trail. So anyway, we're at Deshays, last century, and he laid it all out, just like you're saying, that you have to have, even a verbal warning has to have a written piece of paper to it. It's that we had a verbal warning. And then you have a written warning, which is another sheet of paper. And then before the termination, you have to consider position reassignment. You have to consider work hours and how can we better accommodate you with your work hours or your work environment. Could we possibly get you a better chair? Is there something, ice cream with sprinkles? What the hell what can we do to keep you? And so once those are all exhausted, then you can finally do a termination, and hopefully an exit interview. If that's the key, that's the cream on top. If you can get that exit interview, that whole thing is what you have to have. You just can't go straight to "I bust you to the dead right, get out." And though that's our gut reaction, I was a young man at the time, but I had been in management for several years, and so I knew right was right and wrong was wrong, and I knew when to make an example for somebody and when to speak to them quietly. I'd had years under my belt, but that one caught me by surprise. That was kind of a new thing there. So we're going to make a big announcement, and I'm going to put this down here in the thing. So we have one more question we're going to ask, and then we're going to make a big announcement. So there it is. So one thing I wanted to ask you was, now that you are back to writing again, which is fantastic, how does your personal journey and recovery, and I didn't get to that specifically for a reason. I want your HIPAA privacy to remain your HIPAA privacy. There's groups that call XYZ anonymous for those kind of things. I didn't want to put that part. I don't put your story out there. But through recovery, and the kind of the inefficiencies and everything that you see, how did we go Buffalo, we go Cincinnati, and then we go through this issue of bad life choices and then recovery, and how does Portsmouth fit into all that?
I think that for me, it was the place that I kind of found a very welcoming community, and it's where I got the chance to get away from 2 hours away from big Cincinnati city and away from those old people, places, and things that can drag you down when you're trying to abstain, when you're trying to create new circles, when you're trying to get out of that scene. It gave me enough space. Who's gonna drag me or how am I gonna get 2 hours away every time I want to go hang out with certain people? It really gave me the opportunity to really plant a new seed, kind of like how it sounds like my mother did years ago in Buffalo, New York, but do it here in Portsmouth, Ohio. It's where I was able to finally find healing for the first time, with that space in between me and what was keeping me from progressing, and then just being a good friend, parent, the best person that I could be, because I had maybe those same distractions that my mother had as well, living in a big city, but for me, Portsmouth is where you can go in the dollar store and see someone else that is probably walking the same path as you. There's a lot of hurt and injustices and just bad things that are happening as a result of either choices or systems, but there's a lot of healing and there's a lot of positivity in this city for sure. And I saw that and I felt it almost the moment that I got here and started getting to hear other people's stories in private, whether that's in meetings or through therapy, but then also seeing people get to that next point of their life where things are better, and then the next point where things are better, and it happens a lot and every day here in this town, and it's where I wanted to make it happen for me, and kind of not be too far from Cincinnati, my family, but also have time for me to really find out who I am, anchor myself again, and it happened to be in a small town in southern Ohio, so that's kind of how...
With a beautiful river.
Yes.
And some pretty awesome people.
Still by the river.
Still by the river. So, when you start to write about these things, they aren't always pretty stories. That's why, I purposely skipped over your story.
Mm-hmm.
I have a story. I don't choose to share it.
Mm-hmm.
I can say honestly, and my family knows, I'm coming on 15 years sober,
Mm-hmm.
clean and sober. And those before years, the before clean and sober years, I made some real bad choices.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, that's what happens. But my path to my sobriety is not a conventional one.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, I'm going to keep it to myself,
Mm-hmm.
and my family knows. So I can't speak to the processes of the I don't want to say traditional, but the most effective treatment, recovery,
Mm-hmm.
that's out there. Even during that time, there's some dark times. Now, I'm 15 years in,
Mm-hmm.
and I still have the darkest thoughts. They come on you. They come on you. They're in there.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you were doing the thing you were doing to begin with.
Cringe moments.
Yes. So when you decide that you found, because writing, especially in a contributing factor as an opinion writer, something first you have to have the feeling, right? You have to have that lightning moment, and then you have the feeling, and then you start to jot down your initial thoughts, and you put it away for a day or two or a week or a month, and then something happens in your life. You're like, I started a piece on that. By golly, this is. Sometimes those stories are harsh. Sometimes they're harsh. So we deal with this on a daily basis, and you're just kind of dipping your toes back in it. So my question would be, how are you able to treat a difficult story, but yet show that there is fairness in the system?
I think that it collectively comes together. I didn't just parachute into this community. I'm a part of it now. So these are my friends. These are.
Would you please allow me to trademark that? No. You should trademark it and make your millions. You deserve it just for that. I didn't just parachute in here. I've been right here. Yeah, you watch the next the next political campaign. Somebody's gonna say, "I didn't just parachute in here. I've been right here shopping at Walmart with you for the last 35." Yeah, you did it. You did it. Write it down. Well, we recorded it for prosperity. But yes, perfect. That is it. You can the coffee mugs. Come on, girl. I'm telling you, it's all there.
With little parachutes.
Yeah. Oh, yes. Yes, with the little parachute. I love it. And I interrupted you so hard, but that was so good. That was so good. Okay, go ahead.
These are my friends. These are my peers. These are people that I've heard their personal stories. So there is, I am careful with how I will and do tell stories. And I'm always going to be sensitive to that and make sure that that when I write, it's not to throw a spotlight on me or to expose some, if someone telling a story, bring shame on them or anything like that, especially when it has to do with something vulnerable like recovery or treatment or therapy or whatever's, everything that's going on in this town. So I've got, I'm wanting to connect the stories with people and their stories, and then also the systems that are here that are supposed to help them. But I will always be sensitive to that because I'm involved, and it is a small / big town at the same time. When it comes to this community, so those tough stories are there, but I've got one to tell myself as well. And I think with my writing, for advocacy, but then also keen on HR and what to say or what not to say, I think that I can be strategically careful in taking that emotion out of the situation that could be personal to know this is what happened, this is a process, this is your procedure, doesn't need to be fixed so that this person can still be in this environment, and whether they're court ordered or voluntarily coming to treatment in this town, are they protected? Are they held to that? Are you being held to the same accountability that this person is that we talk about in recovery every day? So with those sensitive subjects or topics or stories, the name of the game is anonymity, and then, but also, does this need to be brought light to? How can we change a voice or a story into some sort of change, catalyst for change, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
So
our if you go to our website, and I told this story a long time ago when we first started, but it says progress inspires change. And where that came from is my sainted mother had it on a post-it note on her personal computer. And after we were going through probate and going through her items, of course, a stick-it note on her personal computer, not high priority. So it was a while, a couple years. And my brother found the sticky note. Progress inspires change. Well, actually, hers was there is no project. There is no progress. There is no change without progress. That was the original quote, is what my mom said. We, had to make a little motto of it. But yeah, there is no change without progress. So we says progress inspires change. And that was in her honor, because that's exactly what you just said. That you can't. We're not looking to change the system. We're looking to make, little victories, little bits of progress that we can make. Okay, we've made some progress. This is no longer an issue, right? And go incrementally and enjoy those small victories. That's why if you look at a football field and the end zones are like nice and pretty, because that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
But all along are all these little lines, right? And that's actually the name of the game. Every part of the game has to do with, did you cross enough of those lines in enough time? And, did you cross from a 4th down to a 1 down because you crossed that special line? See? And so if we apply, it's the world's telling us right to our faces, don't look at the end zones, look at the hash marks, right? There. Now, that's what she's got a trademark, I got a trademark. There you go. We're going to do it. We just made bank on two good ones. But that really is it, and that aligns with your goals. That we're not looking to make this flip of a switch and change all that, uproot, up and end all that stuff. We're looking to identify what specific actionable things, processes that you learn from HR, that you learn from these other places, and say, look, you know what, this is significant. Let's fix this one thing. Let's make some progress here, right? And once we can make some progress here, the community will celebrate. And then if we have 3 or 4 or 5 pieces of progress that we can report on or turn back to and remind people of, then starts kind of getting close to change. You're in the change world now because you're racking up these progresses. What are your thoughts on that? And this is it before the big announcement. So what's your thoughts on that?
On
the hash mark theory as opposed to the end zone theory.
Yeah, I think that in my story that I'll come to tell a little bit more. Just be connected with you through having known about one of your contributors or investigators. I needed to kind of get a hold of you, and that was a small victory on my side in my situation that I will talk about soon. But those little things, it wasn't just for me either to have get help or shine a light on what needed to be told. But I think that as soon as words and communication and articles and just talking to people, getting that conversation going about what needs to happen, that sparks far more interest in why should we change this. These stories that are gonna that are told or that I hope to be able to help tell. I want that to spark some sort of, it could be 1 or 2. Those stories are going to add up, and, being able to kind of show what's going on in this community. That's very much so a lot of recovery going on. For me, the small wins are in those stories because they're going to contribute to some sort of change, which not only protects the the community, but also the people that come here so vulnerable and in need of help. Again, like whether it's court ordered or if it's, you're at a breaking point, you're at your lowest, you need to get away from those old people, places, and things. Okay, let's make sure that we're holding people accountable, just as you're being held accountable for your sobriety and your recovery. So, yeah, that kind of answers your question.
Yes. I was just looking to make sure our sound was still coming through, so I was looking for green dots because we have a big announcement. We have a big announcement, and then after I make the big announcement, we've got something funny. We have the thing called the News Bunny that we use over on our national news side. And so here's our big announcement. But before I make my big announcement, did you already put that thing in your car, or do you have it handy? That a piece of memorabilia from the museum. It's just so strange. All right, this is. Thank you. This is a piece of memorabilia that is very near and dear to my heart, and this was the very first when we first got our news credentials, honey. We were there's no words to describe. Okay, so first we apply to the state of Ohio, and they think about it. Even though they've taken your money,
Yeah.
they could say, yeah, you know. So we wanted to get that thing with the stamp. So now we're legitimate. We've given our mission statement. We've got now a member of a news organization. We're a real business, right? We're a true local business here. And so the very first thing that we needed to do was to be able to have our folks be immediately recognizable in the public, because they're going to see press in a whole new light that they hadn't seen before. So we had these shirts made, and so if you go back in our videos, especially all our sainted Tina Jenkins wore her shirt no matter if she was at the courthouse or the county fairground or getting bit by a fish in the river. You remember that video? That was the most famous video. So this is the shirt. And so this was back, our old website used to be orange and black and white. And I'll tell you now that it was for West colors. But I was thoughtful, and I didn't want to be like, okay, I didn't want this to turn into like a West Portsmouth thing. So I'm like, it could be, hey, orange and black and white. Hey, that's Waverly too. Hey, that's Ironton too. And we can be on to something. So we were orange and black and white for a few years. And then we changed our format. So we're no longer orange, black, and white as far as our web presence. As you can tell by our logo, we went to a simple black and white, and we took that third color out. So you can take that back. Thank you. And I'd have been mad if you threw it at me. And I'll just acknowledge that, because that's from the archives. Huh?
While you're showing it to the TV, not the camera.
Oh, I was watching your direction. See, we've got a producer here, and you'll learn more about the producer. But where was I? I was doing it to the camera, and or I was doing it to the monitor. Oh, I was holding it up to the monitor and not the camera. Holy crap. I know a guy that's really dumb like that. So we've got our big announcement. And from the very beginnings when we started this thing until now, we haven't had really any turnover. And so that's, to me, especially coming from education background, and most of my education, I would teach managers how to be good managers. And one of that is employee retention. If you go by and there's always a now hiring sign there, they don't have an
What's the
employee
problem?
problem. They
Yeah.
got a manager problem. So I'm very happy that in all these years we've been, since from that shirt till now, we've only had one turnover. And I am very proud of that. But I would like to make the big announcement that Mel is now joining our team as a contributor, and you'll be writing articles about any daggone thing you want, frankly, okay? But we have an idea of what kind of niche that you're going to be in. So that front, it's really, we have not added a new person in probably 5 years, maybe 4. I don't, give me a number. 4 years, 5 years, 5 years. We hadn't had brought in a new team member in 5 years. So it for us, to you, but for us, it's huge. We're so happy, and we're going to help use our platform to also give you a voice, right? We've got the biggest microphone that's ever existed in Southern Ohio. Welcome to Portsmouth, Ohio, by the way. And we're going to allow you to use that, all right? And I really think it is time for the News Bunny dance, because we have, for a special celebration. Give me 1 second. Where'd it go? Oh no, too much build up for just a short little thing. Where the heck is it?
Up top.
Do you see it?
Yeah.
Oh, that's one News Bunny. I had to. Where the heck's the news? Oh, there it is. Okay, here we go. The News Bunny dance. I need to double that. I need to make. I knew it was obnoxious, but I think I still need to double that. Oh, the News Bunny, and that's in honor of Bowley Betty, because you just never know where in the heck she's going to show up at. And also, a tribute back to Tina Jenkins. We're the ones, if you remember, that started the Easter Bunny riding around in an open convertible and taking pictures and all kinds of stuff all through town. And we would never, we wouldn't announce. We'd just show up and start we'd start parking in McDonald's parking lot just to get a crowd going, get our own kind of juices flowing, and then just ultimately just drive around where we knew, kind of where people would appreciate it.
Yeah.
And so that's fantastic. So now we've got you official as a contributor. One thing I would like to know is, how do you feel about reporting in a community where you actually live? Now, caveat, not only a community as in town, but a community as in your social community, your recovery community. You can pick whatever you want to talk about. I like that question, by the way.
I think I'm excited, but then I'm also, it became me making sure that certain things have transparency and follow through in this community. It's not just it's personal. It's my friends. It's people I learned their stories about, and it's me. So I'm excited to kind of bridge that gap between stories and then systems that are here to help, hopefully. But I think that Portsmouth is a great place for people to, we've got people that are raising their families and been here years and years and years, but then we've got people who are rebuilding and finally able to get their families back, getting to these points of just being able to be better mentally or, whatever. But I'm excited to be able to kind of dive deeper into maybe those touchy subjects or those tough moments or those stories that need to be heard or told or shine a light on. But I'm also very excited because, it's, I think Portsmouth can become, a place that there's accountability no matter what.
Yeah. And I think you've gotten to know me well enough to know. Yes, we report on things that are, not always nice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, our company slogan is report without bias.
Yep.
Yeah. And then also tell the truth without compromise.
Mm-hmm.
That's the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
Tell the truth without compromise. Telling the truth without compromise, sometimes it stings a bit.
Yep.
All right. But my mama, who inspired the motto, progress inspires change. Look it up, folks. There's a difference between a motto and a slogan. I get so much hate mail. Anyway, when you look at being able to be a teller of truth, how does that affect you that you live in the same area spiritually but also physically in the same spot?
I think, like I said, and going back to the parachute, I think that
You're just gonna keep selling it.
I know,
right?
We were going with it.
Yeah.
I think that it's a different, that I'll have not a different perspective, but I'll have grounds for what I want to write about and what should be written about, and the stories that need to be told. I've kind of like anchored into this community on my own, and then, like I said, I didn't just parachute into this community without having some roots first. I've been here since November of 2024, so it's going on a year. So I'm excited to tell stories, explore more, do interviews, investigations, whatever whatever needs to be done in order for those little moments, those wins that you talked about, those it's not always touchdown, it's those yards that you have to make. I'm excited for
You're selling mine too.
I know, right?
You trying to be my marketing? You trying to get 30% of mine too?
But yeah, just those little moments, is you've got to inch your way along to find progress. And I think that, one story at a time, an article at a time, or hey, let's shine light on this to see what can change. It's, for me, kind of intertwining that voice that someone needed to have about, her alarm, but it's turning it into not only just people in this community, but myself as well. So,
what made you say, this is it? I'm gonna tell some stories. I'm gonna get back into this.
It started when I was at a point in a treatment center locally, and I saw that the accountability and everything that we learned and that we're taught about recovery, it wasn't matching up, and there wasn't transparency, there wasn't accountability. Things had slipped between the cracks, or they slipped between the cracks a long time ago, and then nobody ever went back to it. So that's when I felt like I had exhausted all my resources. I went up that chain of command that I was taught to complain
Right.
up, not out. And when I did that and nothing was happening, I complained up, nothing happened. Now I have to go out. And that's kind of how, it looped into me wanting to get back into writing, but more so for advocacy more than anything. And this time coming, not coming and saying, hey, I'm just writing for the opinion section. I'm going to write about some sports games. No, I'm going to write about things that I care about, that affect me, that affect my friends, that affect people in this community. So that was kind of the changing moment. And I'd reached out to one of your writers, and at this point, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about this, but I had left a voicemail on an old answering machine and got a hold of you. There was a lot of...
Nobody gets a hold of me on
Yeah.
voicemail anymore. So, okay.
But yeah, so I had reached that point, no longer could go up the chain of command in a treatment center because it wasn't working. And then even, going through those systems, there's ways to report things. It wasn't working either. I was sending loopholes after loophole. I was like, all right, I've got to get further out, and that is, going to someone with a voice. I had looked up a lot of people in this town that had opinions, and not just opinions, but very involved in recovery at the time, recovery in this community, and any, issues that not only the community was facing, but then also clients or patients or whatever you want, me. So I really thought...
I felt powerful when you just said me.
Yeah. It's, the stories that I'll be able to uncover, tell, shine a light on, they're personal. It's not just someone else's, it involved a significant part of my life. I stayed somewhere here for about 5 months, and there's a lot to go on about that, but the moment that I said, this is it, was in a treatment center, and the writing is on the wall about, not physically or literally, but
Could have been.
about accountability and what else? Accountability and willingness and truthfulness and transparency. That kind of really that kind of language. It just wasn't matching up to, and it was no longer, and it was affecting me personally and other people as well.
The stuff on the language, the message from the wall wasn't matching up to what?
To what we were taught, not only in therapy, but also in recovery, and that's to be accountable for your actions, and that's to apologize when you need to, and then also fix things if you can. Sometimes we leave things at where they can't be fixed anymore because of our decisions, but we're supposed to try. So that kind of voice or things that have been drilled into our head, it just wasn't matching up. And I think that it's not just happening to one person. So for me, that moment was sitting and feeling a little bit helpless, but knowing that there's a voice, and not really sure if it was going to be mine or another editor or someone's. I knew I had to get out there and for change to happen in my situation, and that's turning more into what I'm passionate about, and that's making sure that people are protected, and then the systems that are in place are there for them as well. Whether it's in recovery or in general, I think that kind of ties that whole HR, making sure that there's fair treatment. So
I like it. I like it. So as a contributor, some things about what is a contributor? A contributor with us is someone who can talk about anything that they want to, but they're chosen based on, of course, their ability to communicate via written word, but then also on what's called voice of authority. And so if you go on our website and you look at our contributors, their articles match up with their expertise. So folks beware, her expertise is multi-language, recovery community, Baltimore, Cincinnati, and
Buffalo.
sports. But yeah, Baltimore's a shithole. Why did I even say that? Buffalo and Cincinnati, and then Portsmouth, and between those three very different cities in a lot of ways. Portsmouth is that gonna be where? Do you think that Portsmouth is going to be where you set down roots and stay? I mean, you raise a family.
I think that it's where it's the first place that I have set down roots. I've been kind of going where the wind blows for my whole life, whether it's as a result of my mom's decisions or things that happen, just consequences, or my own. But this is where I'm finding like who I am, having those, new people, places, and things, but then also able to really put space in between what wasn't, successful or progress for me. So, this is where, I'm finding my own sort of stability. Probably voice again. I am going back to school as well, which is great. I never thought I'd be studying again, but
I'm sorry. You're gonna study for the rest of your life.
I know.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Just usually out of curiosity or need to know. But yeah.
But yeah, the Portsmouth is where I'm, able to find out who I am without all the background noise and the mess that big cities can kind of bring. When you've got so many distractions, or you just build those groups up that just maybe aren't good for you. They're not working anymore. They were fun at some point in time, but they're not fruitful. They're not good for you or for someone who has a family, who is raising children. So yes, Portsmouth is a huge part of my recovery, and then my roots and my family.
Very good. And for those of you in production world, you realize that is going to be an awesome clip. Like people that don't watch the long form video. That's going to be an awesome clip. Oh, they are going to love that. So that's why I had you I stuttered and stammered and showed you the hold on thing until I could get the camera on you. Because that clip is gonna that's a viral, what you just said, because it's real and it's genuine and it's from your heart. But you just made a viral clip, and I felt it coming on. So that's why I wanted to get it for you. You guys aren't going to know this term. Do you guys know what a dime store is? Ever heard of a dime store? You guys at home? Dime store. I know our demographics. So I know the majority of our demographics know what a dime store is. Our demographics are I'm not going to tell our demographics because I don't want the other parts to feel weird or left out. Dime store, I want to be known for a couple of things, but I really want to be known as a dime store philosopher, and so I've written a lot. I'm compulsive, OCD, mental health issue here, and it's for as many mental health issues as I personally suffer through. I probably should talk more, and I'm probably not doing really what I should for my community. But I would say that my main issue is called FND, Functional Neurological Disorder. And I have written extensively about that. So anybody that goes to the website, they're free, the articles. Anybody that goes to the website and just types in the letters FND and hit enter in the search bar, it'll tell you exactly what functional neurological disorder is, and I'll give a little talk about what it is to live with such, you know, such a thing. So, um, the the last thing that really I want to just end this thing and kind of wrap it up is I wanted to ask you, oh heck, give me 1 second. I wrote it down uh, so I wouldn't forget it. Oh, I remember now. So when you talk about um, sitting down in Portsmouth and living in Portsmouth and really going to try to make this place home. How do you take the positive influence? Because we accidentally said Baltimore. The positive influences, not the negative places and friends. The positive influences from Buffalo, from Cincinnati, two very different communities, and Portsmouth. How do you teach your new Portsmouth family some of the really interesting and cool things that you've picked up along the way?
Like in my friends and
However you interpret it. Yeah.
I think that when it comes to
Because we're all a combination. We're all puzzle pieces, combinations of different life experiences, right? For you, how has going from having time in almost said it again, Buffalo.
yeah.
How does it make the time coming from Buffalo, and in Cincinnati, and now Portsmouth, but planning to raise a family in Portsmouth? How can you do so without all the Portsmouth kind of weight or funk, but with fresh perspectives the good things that you picked up along the way
Yeah.
from the other towns? That's what I'm asking.
I think that you've got to always listen to suggestions and do what other people walking this kind of path have done, and I keep mentioning people, places, and things. I do think I keep mentioning places a lot when it comes to my life in Cincinnati, so that's a big one, just having that space in between, but I think people and things are really important too. So if someone's not on that path, you've got to kind of separate yourself in a healthy way. Open doors when possible and when safe for both people. And then the things, just, I'm able to go and explore different areas, different trails, literally go out and explore this town. And set up those good habits in this area, and that starts with people, places, and things. So what I've learned, in life is, throughout all this and the good, is that people do have a voice. Make sure that it's, you're being treated fairly, and that you're also treating other people with that same kind of fairness, and then hold people accountable as well. So, take the good side, as you're saying, to take it out and apply it to here is accountability, people, places, and things, taking suggestions, doing what other people have done, not just in this area, but throughout my walks of life. I've met a lot of people over time doing what I've seen that worked for them. And if there's a suggestion on how to be better, and this doesn't just have to do with recovery, but also in your personal life, try it. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work for you. But over time, you are going to kind of build up what's successful for you, what works, what keeps you sober, what keeps you focused in school, and so I think that what I can take back is when I was in treatment, it's let's make sure this is fair. And it'd be, my friends, I was in a house with all women and making sure that that's fair. But here, stepping out of that situation and getting back into the real world and working, making sure that I treat people fairly. Of course, but then also holding people accountable too. And then the good out of all that is just making sure that with those things that could bring you down, that it doesn't suck your life back into it. Because I could turn this place into Cincinnati tomorrow in my head, but I'm not gonna do that. I think anybody could, but with a town like this, and not getting back in the riffraff of life, just taking suggestions and doing what other people have done to stay successful and not take that bad out, if that makes any sort of sense.
It does. It does. And I tell you what, I want to, thank you for your time. Mm-hmm. Time's the most precious thing. And as we get older, we really realize that. So thank you for your time. Mm-hmm. And congratulations on being our very newest contributor. I'm tickled. I'm excited to see the articles that you're going to be able to put out, opinion pieces, whatever they may be. Mm-hmm. You're under no deadline. That's the best part of the whole thing, because you're under no deadline. You're not going to get assignments. Mm-hmm. You don't have to be somewhere at 4 o'clock dressed to the nines. None of that. Mm-hmm. You just let your own spirit, however you work that in your own life. Just when it's time for the pen to flow or the fingers to type, let it go, girl. Get it out there, and I'm very, very happy and thrilled to provide you a platform. I very much look forward to it.
Me too.
Now I have an actual outro that I have to give.
Okay.
So I get I'll get mine a little close up, because we've been doing. To be fair, we've been doing close ups on you, so we'll be able to get some cool clips later for clips, because people have 90-second memories now. So we're trying to get you some clips. So here is our official outro. That's it for today's episode. Well, freaking obviously, what in the world did I do that for? Big thanks to Mel McLeod for showing up with the real compassion, honesty, and heart in her story. If her story resonated with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Be watching for her articles on SCDN, as we are so thrilled, which we freaking are, by the way.
Me too.
So thrilled to have her among our diverse staff that all subscribe to one singular motto, touchstone, or ethos, and that is to report without bias and tell the truth without compromise. I really believe we're going to learn some interesting truths with Mel on board. Mm-hmm. Now, people know that I don't believe in assembling a team together where it is nothing but an echo chamber and we all feel exactly the same way about everything. Mm-hmm. Well, first, really, that's impossible. You can't even do that in a house, let alone a company. Mm-hmm. But I embrace open dialogue with people I agree with, people I don't agree with, because even people I don't agree with, I mostly agree with, like 90%. If we only disagree over 10%, why are we spending so much time on the 10%? Let's just talk about the 90%, It's a lot easier. And as always, I've got to do this because we're going to do our little roll. So that's cool. So I got to hide that. There we go. And then I got to do the right outro, because we have a new show starting next week. Oh, boy. So I've already got those outros put in there, so I got to make sure I do the right outro. Which freaking one is it? I'm going to give you the wrong outro on purpose, because this kid, we haven't hired anybody, but we've got this little avatar baby Toots, and he's getting so popular. So I guess we'll go out with, let me show you Baby Toots, and then it'll do its thing. So here's Baby Toots giving an outro to our new show coming.
Hey, woo babies and big peoples. It's your bestest little news anchor, Baby Toots Magoo, coming to you straight from the nursery of news and wonderment. I really hope you like the show where the big people sat around waiting on woo-woos and any sort of weird thing they could scoot around and find. Don't forget to tune into my videos. They say I'm getting real popular among the weirdos and the long hairs. This is Baby Toots, and my rash is getting better. Thank you all, and some cream.
I told you it was Baby Toots. Oh my goodness. Oh, Baby Toots. All right. We are the People's News, number one for a reason, and that reason is you. Oh, I'm pointing at the. See? Damn. Okay. So we are the People's News, number one for a reason, and that reason is you. Is that better?
You're about to get Jimmy Kimmel.
But am I? No, I'm going to get a copyright strike now.